Well, this might be the worst Christmas of all time, so Merry Christmas, because a new Shams Charania report just dropped on Jimmy Butler, and boy, was it a Christmas bomb. He noted that, well, Jimmy Butler prefers a trade out of Miami. It is not an official trade request, but according to Shams, Jimmy Butler would prefer not to be on the Miami Heat roster after the February 6th NBA trade deadline, and an ugly potential end to the Heat Jimmy Butler marriage that's been 5.5 years seems the most likely at this point. This sucks. This is why you're subscribed. I was literally just opening presents with the family, and well, unfortunately, this becomes precedent. And I wanted to break this down with all of y'all for you guys to get my initial reaction, my thoughts, and where I think this ultimately goes over the next month and a half. But man, yeah, Shams dropping that note of Jimmy Butler prefers a trade to Miami doesn't feel good. Now, I do want this to be on record and noted, and I want this to be abundantly clear. He has not formally requested a trade. So there is maybe a little bit of hope that he ultimately does not get traded before the deadline if you are someone who wants to keep Jimmy Butler. But it feels abundantly clear now that when you saw all of those reports of the Heat not willing to extend Jimmy Butler, that irking him the wrong way, Jimmy preferring these four specific destinations if he were to be traded, I feel like they were all pointing to something eventually coming out. And I think Jimmy Butler and his agent, they can try to deny, they can try not to comment on the situation, but it feels pretty clear to me that they don't want to stay in Miami if they don't get a contract extension done. And I know a lot of Heat fans want to give Jimmy that extension, do right by him based off what he's done over the last 5-6 years for the Miami Heat. But if we're going to be honest here, I almost side with the Heat in this specific scenario. Now, I don't want that to be misconstrued as I don't like Jimmy, because I love Jimmy. I want nothing more than Jimmy Butler to retire a Miami Heat player and want him to win a championship in Miami, because he's just done so much for this team over the last 5.5 years. But it would be dumb. It would be ill-advised to give him, I think, $58 million guaranteed for the 26-27 season when he's going to be 37 years old. Like, you already see now that he's not able to really be a number one option on a contending team in the regular season that needs to be a top 4, top 5 seed in order to make a run in the postseason. His body just simply can't handle the workload. He can pick his spots and still be elite. Like, just look back a couple games ago when he played and had 35 points, 19 rebounds, and damn near 11 assists. Like, he can still be that guy. He can't just do it consistently enough in order for him to be a lead guy and earn $58 million. And if we're also going to be honest, this Heat team is going nowhere. It isn't. Jaime Jaquez Jr. has regressed. Tyler Hero is the only player on this team that's improved. Bam hasn't taken a step up offensively. He's still him defensively, but offensively, no. Nikola Jovic has been okay, but nothing special. Like, this team is not going to go anywhere. And if I was Jimmy Butler and the Heat were not going to extend me, and Pat Riley made it abundantly clear that they are not going to give him that 2-year supermax extension, then I would also probably prefer to be traded, because maybe another team will give me a 2-year extension that I want. And maybe another team will give me a better chance to win an NBA Finals, which is his ultimate goal. It feels like this is just pointing to everything being the right, like this way. It feels like it was always going to happen in this matter. Unfortunately for Miami, the news dropped on Christmas, and this really sucks. Let me know, though. Give me your one-word reaction to the Jimmy Butler prefers to be trade report. Let me know your one word down below. Mine, it sucks. I mean, that's just what it is. My word sucks. I don't want him to be traded, but it feels like it's going to be heading to that way. And what is today, the 25th? Well, we got 20, 31, about 45, 50 days until the NBA trade deadline, and there will be a lot of stories coming out there. Just a second, we're going to talk about what trade could possibly happen where he could be dealt, which we've talked about a lot, but we'll do it again. But first, let me tell you about our sponsor, which is DraftKings. It is the most wonderful time of the year for getting in all the hoops, football, hockey action at DraftKings Sportsbook. In the season of giving, we're being gifted college football and college basketball, pro football and pro basketball, and pro hockey too, almost 24/7. Here's a gift for all new customers. Bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code HEATCHAT. That's code HEATCHAT for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. And when you bet just $5, you can win $150 in bonus bets. Happy holidays from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777. Visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/bball. All right, back to Jimmy Butler here. And we've mentioned all the teams that have been linked, right? The Dallas Mavericks, the Houston Rockets, the Phoenix Suns, and the Golden State Warriors. Well, we had those little three teams linked a week ago by Brett Siegel, Thunder, Spurs, and the Lakers. I've talked about this, and I will talk about it right now. You can rule out a handful of these. You can. The Lakers will not happen. They do not have a contract that the Heat would want, and I'm pretty sure Miami does not want D'Angelo Russell and Jared Vanderbilt. And maybe they'd get a first-round pick out of it, but I don't think Miami would want that. So rule out the Lakers. I don't think they could handle the Jimmy Butler salary. I don't think Jimmy wants to go to Los Angeles either. You rule out the Dallas Mavericks because they can't combine contracts either unless they're willing to trade Daniel Gafford, Klay Thompson. It wouldn't make any sense for Dallas to do that. So you can rule out the Dallas Mavericks. I think you can rule out the Phoenix Suns. I really do. I know Phoenix might be probably the most interested in Jimmy Butler, and maybe Jimmy is the most interested in Phoenix. But to me, it just doesn't make sense for the Heat to do that trade. Because the only trade they could make is it would have to be a big three-team deal where Bradley Beal waives his no-trade clause to go to that third team, or it would be straight up Jimmy for Bradley Beal and draft picks. Why would Miami do that? They didn't want to trade for Bradley Beal 2 off seasons ago when he said he'd go either to Phoenix or Miami. The Heat were scared of his no-trade clause. And the only way Miami would take on a Bradley Beal contract and him as a player is if he waived his no-trade clause once being traded. Like, he can waive it to get dealt to Miami, but he could still have in his contract. The only way Miami would take him on their team and even give that trade slight thought is if Bradley Beal waived the entire no-trade clause and they could then trade him in the future whenever they wanted to. But I don't know if Bradley Beal would want to do that. I don't think he would. So to me, can roll out a Bradley Beal Suns trade unless they get a third team to take his contract and Beal would want to go there, which I find very unlikely. So when you start to whittle down the pieces to me, it really feels like it's the Golden State Warriors and maybe a surprise team like San Antonio or Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, I can almost rule out OKC because their team is already so good. Why would you want to throw Jimmy Butler into the mix and potentially ruin the chemistry you have? Plus, they don't have a contract that really stands out to you in terms of amount and let me get rid of it. So I don't think OKC is involved. Now, San Antonio can scrounge up some draft picks, Zach Collins, Keldon Johnson, and maybe that would intrigue Miami with the draft side of it because they have so many draft picks. But I also find it incredibly unlikely that Jimmy Butler would sign a 2-year extension in San Antonio. Why would he want to do that? They're not any closer to winning a championship than Miami. Sure, he could play with Victor Wembanyama, and maybe they make a splash play to get a third star in the offseason, but I don't see Jimmy wanting to do that. So then I come back to the same spot that I've always been in, which is if the Heat trade Jimmy Butler at the deadline, I would be willing to predict that the Golden State Warriors are that team. I really believe it is. They have the most motivation to make a trade because they are going nowhere in the Western Conference with their current roster. They need to get Steph Curry a second star or superstar. Jimmy Butler would fit in perfectly with Steph Curry in that team. And they also have a package that is appealing in sub capacity, in my opinion. Getting a Jonathan Kuminga, Andrew Wiggins, Kevon Looney to match salary, plus 1 or 2 first round picks. I think that's an intriguing package. Now, would Pat Riley accept it? I don't know. But I do know that from my perspective and my initial opinion, yes, Kuminga is a free agent to be. Yes, Kevon Looney's an expiring contract, and Andrew Wiggins' contract isn't great. But I don't know if you're going to do much better. And even though we told you at the beginning of today's video, this is not a formal trade request from Jimmy Butler, it's just Shams reporting that it's his preferred outcome this season. Maybe that's the best way to go. Like I mentioned, it's not a trade request. I want that abundantly clear. It's just that he prefers a potential trade rather than staying with the Miami Heat. I don't know if a trade is coming. We'll see if he ultimately requests a trade, but it is not a fun Christmas, to say the least. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Enjoy the rest of your Christmas. Enjoy the time with your families. Happy holidays. If you do not celebrate Christmas, this sucks, but it's not a formal trade request. We'll see where this ultimately goes. We'll have you covered. Go Heat.